In a world filled with unfathomably expensive smokers, is it even possible or feasible to produce a perfect pork butt on a tiny $25 grill?
Oh, yeah. It's right there in the title. Guess that kind of ruins the suspense a little bit. Hello, and welcome back to Cold War Barbecue. I'm Cody Kelly, and I have a sneaking suspicion that a pretty good number of people who watch barbecue videos on YouTube don't actually own high-end smokers. In fact, I'd be willing to bet that if you ran the numbers, the average backyard barbecuer is probably constrained by budget or space to one grill or smoker. If this describes you, I'm going to let you in a little secret. You don't need an expensive offset to produce great barbecue, and I'm going to prove it to you. Let's take a little visit to the store. I contend we can assemble most of the necessary parts to produce a perfect pork butt for less than the price of a single brisket.
First off, we have the grill itself. Now, there's a lot of options at pretty low price points at your average Wal-Mart. But I knew right away what I wanted because I know several people that have this very grill, or maybe a slightly bigger version of the same thing. At $25, it's ridiculously budget friendly. For charcoal, you can go with lump, but I'd caution you on buying the really cheap lump charcoal. I've found a lot of twigs and even rocks in some of those bags. For our purposes, we're going to pick a known quantity with Kingsford charcoal. You can save some money with the off-brand, but your mileage may vary. Still, I won't judge. You might be tempted to buy the Matchlight charcoal, but I'd advise against it, especially if it's one of those light-the-bag varieties. You don't want to use too much charcoal in a small grill, and those bags are kind of one-size-fits-all. So do yourself a favor, buy a charcoal chimney. It's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year round. As far as wood goes, there's quite a few choices here, but I'd stick with something like hickory since it's a real mild flavor. These are even the right size. The last thing we need is just a cheap cut of meat to barbecue. Got a few different options here. Picnic roast, ribeye roast, that'd be pretty good. Ooh, pork butt.
All right, so that's less than $55 all told. That's pre-tax, obviously, but still a very low bar to entry. I'm going to make some assumptions here that you've already got salt and pepper on hand. Add in a little yellow mustard, some garlic powder, aluminum foil, and a bottle of your favorite barbecue sauce, and we're probably looking at about $65. Now, the last prime brisket that I bought was $67. So we're still ahead, though perhaps one slight disadvantage to a cheap grill is that we're going to have to assemble it ourselves before we can do anything with it.
So here we have it. The 17.5-inch charcoal grill. What a name. 16 burger cooking capacity. I kind of doubt it. Porcelain coated steel cooking grate. That I believe. Ooh, here we go. Easy assembly. Assemble in 30 minutes or less. If that doesn't work, do I get my money back?
I don't want to brag, but it only took me 27 minutes. So, what do we get for our $25? Well, maybe a bit more than you'd expect. We've got a top damper, which seems to work all right. We've also got a bottom damper, so we control our airflow coming up and through the top. We have a handle, a pretty neat looking badge, and I'm not even kidding. And then we've got the cook area. It's a porcelain grate. Not great, not terrible. And this grate on the bottom that helps for cleaning it out, so all your charcoal goes here. The way we're going to do this for smoking, of course, all our charcoal is going to go on one side. We're going to have a cool zone over here. You wouldn't think fire management was all that important on a small grill, but I contend it's even more important than it is on a large smoker. We don't have a lot of room to work with here, so we need to make use of this space as best we can. Remember what I was saying about those light the bag charcoal bags being too big? This is my normal chimney of charcoal I'd use in my Weber kettle or in any of my smokers. Now, it would get smaller as it burns down, but not by much. We pour that in here. You see charcoal, of course, spread everywhere. We do our best to control that. But there's just too much of it. You're not going to have much of a cool zone at all if you do it this way. And so probably a half chimney of charcoal is what you'd want to use here. Well, as it's too late in the day to start a pork butt, we're going to put this thing to the test with some burgers. I'm also going to see if there's any way in heck that 16 burgers could fit on this grate. Now, I don't have 16 burgers, but we ought to be able to extrapolate. One other note, I have already made a modification to this barbecue. Now, this isn't one I'd recommend that you make, but we're going to do it to see if we can tell a difference between the hot side and the cool side. I'm nearly 100% certain we will be able to do so. This is our chimney, half full. Underneath, we're going to use some of the leftover paper from the charcoal bag. No Flammenwerfer today, folks. These coals are just about ready. Sure, you're using some sort of a hand protector here, as these do get quite hot. We're actually going to move all of these to one side. We see how close they are to this side. That's exactly where we want them. Now we're going to put our grate back on, minus the grass. And we're going to watch our thermometers for a minute. Right now, the one on the right, which is where the fire is climbing a bit faster than the one on the left. My expectation would be the one on the left will eventually top out, and the one on the right will keep climbing. We'll see. Now the one on the right is clearly ahead of the one on the left. I should also say, I'm not sure about the accuracy of these thermometers. They were kind of an Academy special, but hopefully they're at least accurately inaccurate. Okay. Will we be able to do 16 burgers? Here's the thing, even if you could, you wouldn't want to crowd them. That makes it really hard to flip them later. That one would be dangerously close to the edge. You'd probably mash it down when you put the lid back on. I think we can safely say no 16 burgers.
This is just regular seasoning salt. Not anything too crazy on these because we're going to put some sauces and stuff on them. Alright, we'll check in a minute. Note that I've got this damper all the way open and the bottom one is all the way open too. So we have as much airflow coming through here as possible. While we are waiting for burgers to finish, we're going to make up a garlic aioli. So to 3/4 of a cup of mayonnaise, I've got 2 cloves of smoked garlic. Now, I don't necessarily expect that you would have smoked garlic. I have it from my last adventures in smoking, and it's real easy to make, even on this little grill. To that, we're going to add the juice of 1/2 lemon. It's probably about 2 tablespoons. Give this a stir. And to that, we're going to add a pinch of salt and black pepper to taste. Really doesn't get any simpler than that. This needs to go in the fridge for about a half hour before we use it as a spread. This one is one that was sitting right over the coals, and this one was sitting back here. They were sitting for the exact same amount of time, and we can clearly see this one's nowhere close to done, and this one's getting some brown on it. I do not like to waste smoke, so I'm throwing a couple jalapeno peppers on here. We're going to turn them into chipotles, hopefully, if our fire's hot enough. Alright, we've been moving these around a little bit. It's been probably 10 minutes total so far. These still have a ways to go. The important thing is we're not going to overcook them, not going to turn them into charcoal because we have too hot on our fire. So we're starting to get some separation here. These were over here. These were over here. I've flipped sides, and now we'll wait for these to finish. Also, just one point of clarification, a mea culpa, if you will. You know, I might have been unfair to Expert Grill. When they said 16 burgers, maybe they were talking about metric burgers. I would say these peppers are done. You see the texture on them. The casing just comes off. Nice char. I could have gone even further, but these are perfect for what I'm going to use them for. We are 20 minutes in. These burgers are basically ready to go, except for the cheese. Now, personally, I would say that this first test was wildly successful. Why do I say that? Because it's almost certain that the intended usage of this grill was hamburgers and hot dogs. People generally aren't going to buy a grill like this for low and slow cooking. Maybe they'll do steak or something like that. But hamburgers and hot dogs, that's what the gods of fire intended. We're just going to let that cheese melt down a little bit, and it'll be time to eat. Those are perfect cheeseburgers. Job well done. Not me, you understand, the grill. I've cooked hamburgers before. I need no applause, citizen. But this grill, it's worthy of admiration. Okay, burgers are off. Coals are most of the way burned down. I think we timed our fire pretty good. We're going to let this cool overnight, and then tomorrow morning we're going to start a fire and see if we can't smoke a pork butt. I'm going to add one small piece of wood here, about this size, no bigger. Notice we added it on the very edge over there. We want it to kind of smolder. We don't want it to necessarily flame. We want the smoke, not the heat. Now, I'm using a grill brush here. If you don't have one, then a pair of tongs and a wet paper towel works just fine. Or even a wet rag.
Okay, we have our pork butt. Such a cute little butt. Notice it's tied up in butcher's twine, right? I suspect that is because if it wasn't, it would kind of fall apart or open up and be a little bit more flat. We don't really want that. Good thing is, there's not really much to trim on this, right? I mean, there's a good fat cap here. There's a little bit, throughout the rest of the roast, but I think that's fine. So all we're going to do is season this guy up and get it on the smoker. To do that, we're going to hit it with some seasoned salt and garlic powder. That's really all it's in this, right? So it looks like a spice blend, but that's it. I was originally going to use mustard as a binder on this, but these ingredients are relatively sticky, and this pork has got this net on it, right? And so I just didn't think it was necessary. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's, the dryness of the meat. I didn't really dry this much before we started using it. Last item is black pepper. This is kind of to taste. We're not going to do just a whole lot of this. I mean, it's going to be for pulled pork or I suppose sliced pork. We'll figure out. Depends on how the cook goes, right? Okay, that is ready to go on.
Our lid fits. That is very important. And I have to be honest, I was a little worried. We're kind of off to the races with our gauges here. See, the one on the right is definitely climbing faster than the one on the left. We're just about 2 hours into the cook process, maybe a little less. And notice our temperatures here, still high on the right, low on the left. It's what we want to see. Cooking at about 250 at the grate right now. I'm also using something I don't typically use. Now, I don't know if you can see this display or not, but this is a wireless digital thermometer. And so it's got a probe in the meat, and then it's Bluetooth. And right now, our pork butt's showing about 108 degrees, which is good. That's good progress. We're also out of the danger zone for food safety, right? So you want to get your food temperature, if it's going to be above about 40 degrees, right, which is about refrigerator temperature, you're going to need to get it above 100 pretty quick. You don't want it to sit there for a couple hours because that's where things like salmonella and those sorts of things, food poisoning, that's where that comes into play. And there is our pork butt. And man, it is looking good. Also notice I've been adding charcoal as time has gone on here. And the reason for that is the charcoal that's in there is going to burn down. And so I'll show you how I go about doing that. So for me, I'm just taking a good sized spatula and putting it underneath the grate and holding down on this meat so that it doesn't go anywhere. And then chucking a couple of pieces in there, right? And I'll do that a few at a time. And I'll use that same spatula to kind of move them around a little bit. I'm also moving my wood closer to the fire so that it continues to burn on the edge.
Now, if you don't have a big spatula, you can still use tongs. If you don't feel safe doing what I just did, and that's plenty understandable, you can actually take the pork butt off, put it on a tray, pull the entire grate off, and then stack some charcoal on there. Regardless, you're going to have to do this a few times during the cook just to maintain temperature. Notice too, we have some really good smoke. It's not thick, it's not huge plumes of smoke. It's just light white or what we call blue smoke. And this is perfect for getting smoky flavor on the meat. Okay, my thermometer was showing it's 156. Generally want to wrap between 150 and 160. And that's just to keep it from drying out, right? So we're going to pull this off and wrap it. Okay, so here's our pork butt. Just wanted to show it is not burnt anywhere. It's cooked, pretty evenly. It is a little darker on the side that was facing the fire, and we'd kind of expect that, but it's still good fat render. I mean, it's kind of drippy. Now, the reason we're wrapping this, we want to keep all that moisture in here. We don't want this to dry out on the outside, right? And we're using aluminum foil instead of paper. I use paper for beef, aluminum foil for pork, and that's just because we want a good tight seal around this. Flip this like this. And it's ready to go back on. Okay, so back on. We're going to go ahead and put the thermometer back in as well. It looks like we're probably going to have to add a little bit more charcoal here. Keep in mind that at this point, it's not going to take any more smoke. It's wrapped, so no need to add any more wood or anything like that. We're just trying to get it to temp. For pulled pork, that temp is anywhere from about 203 to 206. And if you wanted to do sliced instead, you cook it a little less. So you can go to like 180 or so for sliced pork.
What's this?
Well, remember when I said I had something to do outside?
Yeah, something about racing iguanas.
That too. But I was also making a pork butt.
I love pork.
I know you love pork butt.
Can I taste it? So what'd you use? The gravity?
No?
Offset?
No?
You heated up the reverse airflow for this?
No. This was done on that $25 expert grill.
Shut the front door. It's not just for burgers anymore.
I think it actually turned out awesome. The cook was a little easier than I thought it was going to be, although fairly time consuming.
It's so juicy.
Oh yeah, the meat is ridiculously tender. We haven't even added sauce to it yet, so this is just the moisture of the meat.
Delicious.
I know, right? Okay, I'm going to be completely honest. I did not expect that level of quality out of such a tiny grill. I didn't expect the cook to go as easy as it would. I didn't expect the pork butt to fit in the top. I hoped all of these things would turn out, but I wasn't sure. And now that we've kind of seen what this thing can do, we'll probably explore a few more choice cuts of meat in the near future. What are some of the cuts you'd like to see? Well, brisket's probably way out, just due to size if nothing else. I'd love to experiment with a range of other meats. I think we could probably fit beef ribs, certainly some pork ribs, although we may have to cut them down a little bit. Sausage, sky's kind of the limit. Let us know in the comments what you'd like to see on the little Expert Grill 17.5-inch cook surface porcelain grate, yada, yada, yada. If you like what you saw here, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and tell a friend. Part of our mission here is to help folks who have these smaller grills, have no real other options, and still want to deliver an awesome finished product. Until next time, this has been Cold War Barbecue.